Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve.
Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today's guest is Dr. Maureen C. DeRosso, better known as Dr. Marr. Dr. Marr is a leadership executive, author, speaker, resilience expert, fertility advocate, and TDX speaker. She has a powerful TED Talk called The Secret Battle Behind Powerful Women Leaders, where she details the hidden struggles behind the scenes of high achievers. And Dr. Marr bases her work on real experience of loss, faith, and resilience. So we're going to be talking to Dr. Marr about her struggles and her TDX talk and books and everything that she's up to and going to be up to. So Dr. Marr, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Curtis. Again, my name is Dr. Marlene C. DeRosso. I do go by Dr. Marr. I was born and raised in sunny Miami, Florida. I am a first-generation American. My parents are Haitian immigrants. And I always lead with that because their story and what they want and wanted for their children is really what helped to propel me to where I am now, in the sense that education was always very important in my household. And as a result, I am an overachiever, an avid learner. I worked my way up from a payroll position to now also be the chief financial officer for my organization. And I've been with the same company for 24 years, next month in July. And on my quest to leadership, I had a bout of infertility, and it's something that is so stigmatized in the community in general, right? And just by women, about women. And it's something that not a lot of people talked about. So I found myself in that crossroads of, do I try to fulfill my dreams and career goals based on continuing my education and, continuing to climb the ladder, or do I also try to figure out starting a family? So it's something that is really, really touching to me because I found so many women are dealing with that type of disruption. And oftentimes they're dealing with it surrounded by shame and silence and not a lot of help. So that's what's positioning me now to definitely go in and help women while they're on their journey, help people during their careers. Because like you mentioned, I'm also a leadership executive, and my doctorate is in organizational leadership. And it's something that I'm also very proud of, only because in addition to being the numbers lady, hence going from payroll to chief financial officer, leadership was very important. I wasn't able to necessarily do it alone. I relied on my team. And if you have a team of people working with you, you have to be effective in your leadership. So I'm one of those unique people, Curtis, that kind of am good in a lot of things. And I am trying to figure out how I can just use my gifts in the best way to help make an impact and inspire other people.
Absolutely. Speaking of inspiring other people, let's talk about your TDX talk, the TDX talk that you done that's so powerful, the secret battle behind powerful women leaders. Talk about what inspired you to do that talk and share such a personal message and let listeners know what the speech is about and where we can hear it.
Yes, absolutely. I participated in TEDx rally back in August of 2025. So the talk is still relatively new. You can definitely find it on the YouTube. You just Google my name and the talk will come up. And it was a talk that was very, very important to me because although I've always wanted to do a TEDx talk, once I finally got the notification that I was selected to be part of the TEDx rally cohort, the next question became, oh my gosh, what exactly am I going to speak about? Because, TEDx is about really putting new ideas out there, sharing your lived experience, and really adding to ways that other people, when they find their talk, can elevate their life or help them in some manner. And what was really, really prominent to me involved both my leadership climb in addition to my infertility journey. And just to give a little bit of detail, because it's all important with the context, my infertility journey lasted 15 years. And I am happy to say that at the end of my journey, I am a mom of four. And there's all four boys. One of my boys is a bonus child. He's been in my life since a little before he turned 2. He's my husband's firstborn. I always call him the one kid that didn't give me any labor pains, my son Richard. And then I went on to have 2 twin boys. Their names are Kason and Camden. They're 13 now. And finally, my youngest boy, KB, is what we call him, and he's 8 now. So that was really, really important to me to bring to the forefront, because when I was on my journey, Curtis, there wasn't a lot of support. Of course, going through IVF and IUI and having surgeries, you deal with your medical staff and your medical team, but not a lot of support in terms of other people that could relate, or having a safe space or an outlet to share my story or share what I was going through. So after having experienced my journey and also did it while trying to grow and excel in my corporate career, I said, we have to talk about this. We have to figure out a way to let other women know that they're not alone, and that their lived experiences are not only validated, but other people can relate, right? So with that, I ended up writing my first book. It's called It'll Happen by 30, and it's also available on Amazon. And after I wrote that book, I said, okay, well, I talked about this journey. What else can I do? I started to speak. So I found myself speaking at leadership conferences, infertility summits, different expos that focused on maternal wellness, women in general. And quite naturally, that led me to say, okay, I want to expand this conversation once I got on the TEDx stage. And at that point in my life, I was in school for my doctorate in leadership, like I mentioned earlier. And I said, let me see if I can, put the talk together to really share my story and my lived experience about infertility while also being an effective leader. And really, the talk focuses on how we women need to not let any disruption that's in our life, we don't let that define us. We don't let that be our or become our new identity, right? You are more than a diagnosis. And I really love to talk around disruption, because sometimes as women, we plan everything, we have goals, we have things that we want to accomplish in our life. But unfortunately, disruption happens. And what do you do? When that happens? Do you stay the course? Do you switch gears? Are you able to adapt? And do you forego your dreams because now you have to deal with this disruption? So that's what the TEDx talk focuses on, that you're more than just, this disruption that's trying to basically, interfere with your life. And I provide practical tips on how us women are to support each other and, lend a helping hand if you sense that another woman is going through a disruption, so that you can figure out how you can help her. Because having, safety and security in community, it goes a long way. And people want to be part of a community where they feel they are understood, where they feel that other people can relate, so that they don't feel alone, right? And each person that shares their story, it allows that safe space and that opportunity for other women to share their story. So that's a little bit about the TEDx talk. And even if someone hasn't had an infertility journey or an infertility experience, after I left the stage in Raleigh, the women, they were lined up to speak with me, and one of the women specifically, Curtis, said, Dr. Mar, I love how you framed your talk around disruption, because I myself had not dealt with infertility, but my disruption right now as a woman in leadership is dealing with grief after the loss of my father. And I just didn't know it would hit me like that. And I'm still expected to show up at work, lead my team, do my work as it's assigned to me. And it's just hard. So hearing you say that just really allowed me to take in those practical tips on how I'm more than this grief. I will get through it. I can give myself grace. It's okay to ask for support, advocate for myself while I go through it. So it's really, really a very groundbreaking and, important talk that really gets that message out there about women, their identity, and being supported.
Let's take a quick break.
In Kansas, blind vending operators are vanishing without a trace. No bodies, no witnesses, only silence. Detective Michael Miguel thought he had seen everything, but this case pulls him into something far darker, a web of institutional corruption so deep it was never meant to be uncovered. When vulnerable blind people disappear and bureaucracies close ranks, one question remains: who will fight for justice? As Miguel digs deeper, he uncovers a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of power, a system that exploits the very people it was designed to protect. The truth is buried in paperwork, hidden behind closed doors, guarded by those who have everything to lose. Some conspiracies hide in plain sight. This one hides in the dark. Iron Cane Media presents The Blind Conspiracy, written by Mikhail Battles Sr., available now on Amazon.
Well, I know that you have been a leadership consultant throughout your career while facing significant personal challenges. So
Yes.
talk about how those personal challenges has shaped your leadership philosophy.
That is a fantastic question. And I love that because I have to tell you that even on my quest to, pursue my doctorate, the then question was, what is my research going to be on? And of course, as a leadership, major, I wanted to focus on leadership. And as a woman, I wanted to focus on women topics and gendered topics. And the reason why I bring that up, Curtis, is because my dissertation, which was nominated with the university for dissertation of the year. It was groundbreaking research and it focused on one of my research questions being exactly what you just asked me. And my dissertation is titled The Effects of Lived Infertility Experience on Women and Their Leadership Practice and their leadership style. So I had the pleasure of interviewing my participants for the dissertation and for my research. And as someone who went through it myself, I was able to really take the time to hone in on their lived experiences, what they shared with me. And to specifically answer your question, yes, going through challenges and personal dilemmas like that does indeed impact the way that you lead, your philosophy on leading, and even how you practice your leadership. And for me, it taught me that it's okay to be able to adapt and pivot away from what you thought the plan and the roadway and the map looked like. Because as women, we're very, I think by nature, organized and goal oriented, and we want to do things in a certain way by a certain time. And sometimes that can be to your detriment, right? You think you're doing things the right way because that's how either someone told you to do it or that's what's expected. And when this disruption happens, it even becomes a disruption within you when things aren't going to plan. You lose all inhibition, you lose your focus because you're so focused on the fact that it's not going right. So, how it's changed my philosophy is that I have to be able to adapt. I'm always I've always been a person who had empathy. I've always been a person to be able to strategize and help other people pivot. But for me, it wasn't the case because it had to be done because that was the goal. And I learned that was one of the biggest things is it's okay to evolve, right? So in my philosophy, you're approaching leadership in a manner where, yes, this is the ultimate end goal, but the way that you get there doesn't have to necessarily be cookie cutter, right? And in leadership, you're dealing with other people. So if you're not able to adapt and you're not able to make that safe space for things to have that change, you're going to be in for a lot of trouble. And as I learned that along the way in my leadership, I'm always very proud to say how my team and the men and women that have worked with me over these past 24 years have always said, Marlene, yes, you're stern, but you're empathetic and you're always there for us. And even when things are hard, and even though we don't know what's going to happen, we do it for you because we know you care and you understand and you'll allow us, our own way to try things out, do it differently, come back, learn from it. And I think that's very important as a leader to be able to pivot and be able to adapt. And, talking about leading through difficult times, infertility was a personal struggle, of course, for me. However, my team and my staff has had other issues that we had to navigate and get through. And from an organizational standpoint, I worked in the healthcare field, and COVID literally tried to take us out. It was something that none of us accounted for, no one planned for. So definitely leading through something like that with no roadmap, no plan, that's where that adaptability and that authenticity comes in terms of a leadership philosophy, because you have to be able to be willing to go with the flow and still have the end goal in mind, knowing that you can't do it by yourself.
Well, let's talk about your master class. You talk about the invisible walls that high performers face. So talk to the listeners about your master class and also the most common invisible walls that you see leaders face.
Absolutely. And that masterclass can be found on the Influential Women platform. And it's a masterclass that I really, really love because oftentimes when women are, trying to accomplish all these goals, you're trying to accomplish, everything that you had in your life, meaning everything you planned for in your life, whether it's in a personal note, whether it's in a professional note, whether it's in a social note. So because us women, we're so multifaceted. And oftentimes what other people don't see is that as you're trying to do this, these walls are there. And not only are they there, other people don't see them, so they're invisible. What are some of them? And you're dealing with imposter syndrome. Am I good enough to get this done? You're dealing with, and the thing is, the reason why they're invisible is because other people see you pushing through, but they don't see what it is that you're pushing through. So if you're dealing with gender bias, at work, you may be dealing with a personal disruption. You may be dealing with, your own internal struggles in terms of maybe you don't feel you're good enough. Maybe you don't know what you'll be able to accomplish. And oftentimes, once you keep trying to push through these invisible walls without seeking out help, without making it known, without showing up authentically yourself, because when you are dealing with these walls that you're running into, you're not showing up as yourself, right? We have on that invisible mask. We have on, those blinders because our goal is to just get it done by any means necessary. So there's extra pressure. You're not taking care of yourself from a health and well-being standpoint. You're always in go. You're never pausing. So at that point, you're emotionally dysregulated sometimes as a result. And what I also find when you're dealing with these invisible walls is you'll either overproduce because you're so focused, or sometimes you'll underproduce. And what does that do? Cause you then to really be hard on yourself because you regret your actions, you regret your level of indecisiveness. Sometimes you're unable to make decisions. Your team comes to you and you're not interacting with them in the right way. So all of these invisible walls really give women a run for their money. So one of the ways that I teach in the masterclass, and you should definitely check it out, is my EAR framework. Because we are more than whatever it is that's disrupting us, it helps you to build resilience if you're able to face it head on instead of putting on these blinders and showing up as a shell of yourself. And that ear framework is exactly what it sounds like, ear, like your ear, EAR. And the E starts off with having that emotional awareness so that you can build your emotional intelligence. Because it's, at the end of the day, we're human. So whatever you're feeling, right, these invisible walls are causing you to react sometimes versus responding. Why? Because you're trying to keep everything in. And eventually, because you're human, it will bottle up and you want to explode. But in life, we can't walk around exploding. We can't walk around being that volcano. It's not good, right? Even to the extent that other people view you a certain way because you're walking around about to explode, or even yourself for your health, right? That's not good for you. So that first E in the framework is to have that emotional awareness, become emotionally aware so you can become emotionally intelligent, right? That way you catch yourself. You know, if you're not having a good day, you can stand up for yourself. You can speak for yourself. You can ask for the time off that you need or the break that you need, because sometimes it's just a short break so that you can reset. The next one is the A for having authenticity so that you can be able to adapt, because you are not showing up oftentimes as the true version of yourself, you're not being authentic. And where you're not being authentic, you're not being aware or acknowledging what you need. So you have to be able to be authentic, because once that happens, then you're able to adapt, right? And being able to adapt doesn't mean that you're just, not getting anything done or you're pushing through anyway. No, you're doing it from a different mindset. Okay, I know that the next 3 hours, I need to be able to get this done. But you know what? I'm feeling a little bit down. Because I've acknowledged that and I'm showing up authentically myself, I can ask for that help. I can ask for that extension. I can say, you know what? I prefer to do it sitting down versus standing up, right? So you're able to adapt even within yourself so that you can get things done. And finally, R, you're building your resilience, because once you do that on repeat, and the reason why you have to do it on repeat is why? Life is always going to throw something at you. Just when you think you've overcome something or you've accomplished something or you've, went ahead and succeeded at something or got through a barrier, the other one is waiting right there for you. And it's oftentimes very inevitable and unexpected at the same time. So you have to be able to do that practice so that you're ready when the next obstacle comes, when that next invisible wall comes. Your resilience is what's going to help you get through, because you'll think and say, hey, I was able to get through that last situation, and just having that mindset of completion, I'll be able to get through the next one.
We'll talk about how your experiences with fertility and loss has shaped the way you view success, achievement, and personal fulfillment.
That's a tough one. It really is, because until I dealt with infertility and loss, I had never experienced anything traumatic like that before in my life. So I had no roadmap of how to manage that. And there's one thing when you are navigating life and you know where you're going. Like now, back in my day, we had MapQuest where you needed internet and you would have to put the address in to and from, print the paper out so that it can tell you turn here, do this, do that. Now we've elevated to GPSs, right? And our phones are equipped with all of this stuff. So outside of having to need a roadmap, prior to having that experience, there was never a need, because whatever I planned, it happened. Whatever I wanted to do came through fruition. I always had this philosophy of, if you do good, good is going to come to you, right? So as I got older and realized that I was dealing with this situation that I had, it was uncharted territory. I had no roadmap for. I had no idea either if I'm going to be successful. And the reason why I like to bring that up is because generally speaking in life, you know that if you start school, you're going to finish, right? There is no, you might take a little longer, you might fail a class, you might have to redo a class. Okay. But you know you're going to finish. You know the outcome. You know that once I enroll, the outcome is I'm getting this degree, right? Fine. With infertility, you don't know that. Not only do you not know what you're doing on that path, you don't even know if what it is that you're trying to do and what you explore to do and what you are seeking help from the doctors to accomplish, you don't even know if you're going to get it. So it really threw my life, you know, in turmoil. And after having to deal with infertility, after trying for 10 years, because that's my husband and I's story, we tried for 10 years. Within that 10 years, a portion of it was trying naturally. Another portion was getting checked out by the doctor, taking medications, having intrauterine inseminations, which are also known as IUIs, having in vitro fertilization, which are also known as IVFs. And after 10 years of all of that, we finally elevated to having to do IVF in vitro. And I have to say, we were one of the lucky ones, right? So, again, because I didn't know what was going to happen, we didn't know it would take that long. And how I hung in there, I couldn't tell you, right? Just by the grace of God and knowing that I have to keep trying, because if I don't try, the answer is automatically I'm not going to get it. So there was a sense of you just have to keep going. And after 10 years, we did our first IVF, and we were one of the lucky ones and successful with our IVF. It was the first time I was ever pregnant that I knew of. And we were excited, just very excited, very happy. And unfortunately, it wasn't long lived. When I became, I want to say about 4.5 months, I had some complications, had to go to the doctor, never left the hospital when I went. And we ended up delivering my daughter, Angel Grace, at 22 weeks, one day. And it was just the most devastating experience in my life. So not only was infertility horrible, and to have to go through that, and then now you finally get what you think is your reward or your accomplishment, or you've accomplished your goal, and to have that's just stripped away from you was just horrible. And the delivery was horrible, labor for 13 hours, the whole thing, pushed out the baby. And it's an experience that I'll never forget, because everyone else that was on the maternity floor, they left and went home with their babies. And my husband and I, we left with a purple box. And it's just horrible. There's no other way to describe it, right? And at that point I said, oh, okay, so what does this mean, right? And it really took a toll on me afterwards. And it just really showed me that even when you're on your quest to be successful at whatever it is in life, you just don't know what you're going to encounter. And once that disruption happens, you have to be able to figure out, how do I emotionally regulate? How do I accept what just happened when you don't want to accept what just happened? How do you then make a decision on what to do next, right? Do you let that shatter your dream? Do we try again? Do we even want children? Like, will this happen again? It was just very unsettling and a very difficult time to navigate. So dealing with that and now being on the other side just really taught me, and always reminds me, that even though you have a plan, even though you think you know how you're going to do something and by when you want to do something and even why you want to do something, you have to make room for being prepared for the unexpected. And you can't let the unexpected knock you off your track, because it might slow you down. It might even speed you up. It might cause you to stop for a certain point, because sometimes that's what needs to happen. But you can't let it knock you off your track. You are still that wholesome, good person. You're just dealing with that right now, knowing that we have to keep trying because tomorrow still exists. So.
Well, looking back, was there a specific moment that you realized that your pain could become your purpose in advocacy work?
Yes, absolutely. At the time that I was going through it, when I was in the crux of it, absolutely not. I'm like, what is this? I don't know. I was angry. I was confused. I was upset. And then because of the decision to keep trying and the decision to move forward, although I was afraid, we decided to keep going. And, even with that, we found out with our next IVF, we were having twin boys. that was another disruption in itself because they came extremely early and had a 4-month NICU stay. So we navigated that. And then at that point, we decided to try one more time, and we have my youngest son. And it was after I had him that I remember, I had to have a C-section, so I was home recovering. And I kept saying to myself, what a beautiful ending or solution or conclusion, I should say, to this tumultuous story. And I said, there has to be a way that I can do more and share my story so that I can give inspiration and continued motivation to other people that are on their journey. And it was right after I had him. And what really helped catapult it is that those years that I was dealing with the grief and the emotional instability and the fear and the anger of having lost our daughter, I journaled a lot. And I've always been a writer, but I really honed in on journaling and writing because I needed to get my emotions and my feelings out. And it was a daily journal. Whatever I was feeling, whatever questions I had, whatever I just wanted to brain dump, I journaled. And those journals continued from my post grief or post loss journey into when I was doing the next rounds of IVF. And after having my last son and wanting to help and wanting to inspire and wanting to share, all those journals is what eventually became my first book, It'll Happen by 30, A Relentless Journey of Faith, Delayed but Not Denied. And that's kind of what spearheaded everything for me. I wrote the book, and then I said, like I mentioned a little earlier, okay, now I need to talk about it. People need to hear this. They need to know I'm a real person. And that is really what sparked my advocacy work and the quest to spread awareness and offer a sense of support to women and the families that are dealing with this.
What advice would you give women out there who are silently struggling, but no one really sees it or knows exactly what they're going through?
Yeah, I would definitely tell them to honor and acknowledge how they're feeling. But because we are now in a age, because my situation, my youngest son is 8, so the twins are 13. So this is beyond, like, let's say 20 years ago, and the amount of resources and help that are available now, hence my speaking with you on this podcast, didn't really exist back then. So I would tell those women to honor and acknowledge how you're feeling, be authentic in what you're feeling, and be okay with whatever emotions you're feeling on any particular day or situation. Advocate for yourself, but also look up, research, Google, find resources, type in fertility support, advocacy, all the things so that you can find, there's so many women out there and so many other companies out there willing to help you. Because sometimes you'll find that even though more people are discussing infertility and being a little bit more open about it, they do so in a safer space or a safer environment outside of their internal niche, like their friends, family, even in the workplace. People don't feel safe or comfortable sharing it with people that are in your lives, which is why so many women go on and not even share with their parents, sisters, friends, HR, whoever, because of the stigma and the shame that they feel even within themselves. So I would say acknowledge how you feel, honor how you feel, know that you are not, you're not less than because of what you're going through, but then operationalize that and activate that in the form of doing research. Look for resources, look for support groups. More and more of them are out there. And be wary when you are searching for resources and help of, people that would try to get you to buy stuff or, do things. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But that's why I'm here, right? And I know a lot of people. I know a lot of different holistic approaches, spiritual approaches. I myself am a fertility coach. So I work with women, men that are trying to start their family. And the other thing I would tell them, Curtis, is be willing and open to at least listen and find out about or explore other options. And I say that because infertility is already shameful and stigmatized, that with all of the different options that are available for family building, sometimes we have tunnel vision and we say, oh no, it has to be, I don't know, I'm not doing IVF, or if I need to have a surgery to clear my tubes, I'm not doing it because whatever, I don't know. Just be open to it. You just never know, right? The goal oftentimes is to be a mom, is to be a parent. And sometimes it won't happen in the timing, in the manner, and in the way that you envisioned. But if you allow yourself the opportunity to explore and even just listen to other options, it doesn't mean do them, but give yourself that opportunity to be open to other ways. I think that that would definitely help put them on the right path as well.
Tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of.
Yes, I'm always doing something. The month of June, though, is supposed to be my month to try to rest. But some projects that I'm working on include, I have a ongoing weekly masterclass that's called Chaos to Calm. I offer it on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is a class for women, and it allows us to redefine what our identity is and from the lens of our eyes versus how other people see us. And oftentimes us being ingrained and being there and being everyone for everyone else, you lose yourself and then you show up unauthentic or inauthentic. So Chaos to Calm helps us to regain our emotional control, and having that emotional regulation is what sets you apart and, you know, serves as a competitive advantage in anything that you're doing. Being able to emotionally regulate allows you to run a better, more happy, more organized household, right? Helps you to perform better at work, helps you to advocate for yourself. So I have my Chaos to Calm masterclass. It'll be available on my website, www.mcdbe.com. And I also have an event in October that's coming up. It is the You Are Not Alone, the You Are My Angel Maternal Wellness event. And it's in honor of National Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month. October is that particular month as it was proclaimed by former President Ronald Reagan after he and his wife Nancy lost their 5-month-old infant daughter. So it's something that's near and dear to me because I curate a very safe space and great event that people can come listen to, have resources surrounded around, you know, maternal empowerment, maternal wellness, and definitely giving space to honor those that we've lost on that journey as well.
All right, mcdbe.com was my next question, your website.
Yes.
So close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And one of the things I'd like to tell our listeners is don't give up on yourself. You are more than whatever issues that you're dealing with. And I think oftentimes because life can be so challenging and because change is inevitable, we tend to question ourselves and tend to try to figure out what our purpose is and what we're doing. But as long as you show up authentically yourself, I think that you can accomplish anything. And I'll leave you with my MCD principles. It's something that I always share because it works and it really reminds you to not give up on yourself. And the M is for being motivated. When you wake up every day, regardless of what happens, remember your why. Once you remember your why, it'll help you continue to be motivated so that you can get through any disruption that's happening, right? Because you're trying to get to the other side of to get to your why. Then the C is for being courageous. Remember, I told you I didn't know what was going to happen if I ultimately decided to try again after my loss. I was afraid. I did it anyway, because being courageous doesn't mean that you're not afraid. It doesn't mean you have all the answers. You're acting and taking action in spite of the fear, right? Be courageous because you never want to regret and wonder, oh man, what if? You can't go back. So just be courageous, do it. And finally, D is be dynamic. Why? Remember, I talked about that authenticity, right? If you normally are a bubbly person, and because of whatever you're dealing with, you're showing up with that mask on, or you're showing up, inauthentically yourself. Don't let that take away your joy. Be dynamic, show up authentically who and how you are, and everything else will just work itself out. So those would be my final thoughts. Definitely check out my website, www.mcdbe.com. And my name, Dr. Marlene C. DeRosso, is where you can follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and my Instagram is just like my website, MCDBE.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Keep up with everything that Dr. Mar is up to.
Yeah.
Please be sure to check out her master classes, check out that TED Talk, check out her books,
Yes.
follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. And to keep up with all things Living the Dream, check out www.curveball337.com and share the website and the show to everybody you know. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Dr. Mar, thank you for all that you're doing. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you so very much for having me. The pleasure was all mine.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.